it. So I did a little bit of research on the mushroom rings. Like,
okay.
So anybody who may not know what I'm talking about, and that's probably like 99% of you. So I posted on my Instagram these photos that I took in my backyard where there's this ring of giant mushrooms that formed, and it almost looks like I don't know, like a circle, like a crop circle, only like surrounded on the edges by mushrooms, giant mushrooms. Well, my oldest niece replied to it and said, "Whatever you do, don't stand in the center. That's a fairy ring."
Oh.
Okay, so I looked it up. Fairy rings are a real thing. Essentially, I mean, if you are superstitious in any way, then there's spiritual meanings to them in folklore. Which is like, it can either be a sign of good luck, bad luck, or, a few other things. But in any case, the fairy rings are made by actual fairies. This is all in the folklore. And if you get in the center, then you're disrupting them. And so they retaliate by pretty much making your life a living hell.
Wow.
So you're going to get bad luck.
So when you heard that, you instantly stood in the center of the mushrooms, right?
Well, I ate them.
Oh.
No.
Oh, wow.
I didn't stand in the center. See, I'm a just in case guy.
I see.
You never know. I don't think these things I don't really believe in these things because I've never seen any evidence of like anything coming true. I've got relatives and friends who believe in that kind of thing. But I'm a just in case guy. So I'm just like, you know what? I'll let the fairy rings exist. And
so you don't believe
I don't have to disrupt
very much
fairies if they're actually there.
You don't believe in a lot of like paranormal stuff at all, or just fairies?
Well, it's not that I don't believe in it. It's that I've never seen any evidence of it myself. Okay. Actually, I shouldn't say that. I have had a few strange experiences that I can't explain. But other than that, if I started talking about them, this whole podcast would be nothing but my stories. Because I have this inability to keep things short, as you've probably picked up from, what is it? What are we? 78 episodes?
79 today.
79. So is this the 79th?
It is.
Holy smokes, people.
Yeah, it's quite.
What are you doing still listening to us?
Well, they might not be. Sometimes I feel like, that abandoned radio station that's just saying numbers from like World War II and it's code for like spies, and that's how I feel about this podcast sometimes. Like, we're just recording and no one ever hears it. And I got a little nugget of information that people probably don't know. Dan and I have not physically seen each other at all since starting this podcast.
Yeah.
That's weird, right? Everyone probably thinks like we get together and do this podcast. No, we were doing it at our own homes, completely separate. It's been going on for a while. 2 years?
Well, no, it's 2 years.
It's actually haven't even seen each other in reality that whole time.
No, not at all. It's actually going to be 2 years in November, Eric.
So if you're crazy like me and you feel like maybe you're just recording this podcast and no one's actually listening, sometimes I think maybe Dan's not even real. And this is some sort of Fight Club situation. And I just made you up, or you made me up.
How are we to know that? Yeah, how are we to know that we're not just figments of each other's imaginations?
I have no idea. I'm dead serious. I don't know.
I never actually. Yeah, that's true. Come to think of it, it has been 2 years since we've seen each other. So maybe neither one of us are real.
Could be. I don't know.
Something
I'm
to think about.
just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
That this may not be real. All of this.
Yeah. And you know, to that point, welcome, citizens of Earth, to the Accelerativ Thrust podcast. This is our weekly Zoom cloud meeting in the clouds. My name is Dan.
And my name is Dan. And Eric.
You see?
Yeah.
See? He made me up. Yeah, like he had to reintroduce. He forgot that I was the one introducing myself in his imagination.
Right. It's hard. It's really difficult because what happens is I record your part first and then I respond to it. It's actually how it works. I listen back to me doing your part and then I record my part. It's actually kind of difficult to get the timing right and to make it seem like a natural conversation. It's really weird.
It sounds easy to me, Eric. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Well, it would sound easy to you.
Yeah. You're not the one doing it. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I feel nothing. Yeah. That's a good point.
This is
I forgot about that.
We've gone too far.
You know what though?
What's that?
When have we not gone too far? Okay, what I was gonna say, since I'm not real, is that there's a lot of celebrities in the world. You know, you can start from the very beginning of time. Guys like I don't know, Boy George. You remember him?
From the beginning of time,
Yeah, the beginning of time. I mean, Culture Club.
Yeah.
You know, you also had like Samantha Fox at the very beginning of time.
Yeah.
All these MTV was basically the beginning of man, right?
As far as I know.
At this point. It's the first thing I've ever seen. I mean, I don't have any proof that anything existed before November 20th, 1980. I don't even have proof that I exist anymore.
Right.
Thanks to you, Eric.
It's just the Buggles. Buggles forever.
Yeah, the Buggles. Exactly. I mean, you can move on to somewhat current celebrities, and the one that I want to talk about is someone who I don't think we've ever talked about on this show, Fred Durst. Or have we ever talked about him? I don't remember.
No, I don't think Fred Durst or Limp Bizkit has ever come up. Yeah,
it's never come up thanks to me because I'm not real, so it couldn't have come up.
I hope you know I was joking. I don't want you to feel offended.
No.
First, I don't want you to worry about not being real because it's not true. But also, I don't want you to be offended that I feel that that I insinuated you were a figment of my imagination. That seems like not a nice thing to do to your friend.
Kind of hurts, Eric. No, just kidding.
I know.
Oh
God! All right.
This is
So what's Freddie D up to?
He's up to the holy grail of all news stories, Eric.
Oh man.
This is the holy grail. So,
wow.
Fred Durst is going to host an immersive Halloween party on a boat in Philadelphia. Now,
wait, like immersed in water?
So I'm reading this verbatim. You know what?
Immersive might not be the best term. Anyway,
that's true. Immersive, like, so it's gonna like I'm gonna drown people on a boat.
All right,
but give me something to drown anyway. So
wow.
There are so many like things you could like replace Limp Bizkit lyrics with that insinuate you're going to drown people. But anyway, so Fred Durst to host immersive Halloween party on a boat in Philadelphia. This is from the Metal Sucks website. So I'm going to actually read this verbatim just because I love the way this opens up.
All right.
Attention, all hot mamas, pimp daddies, and especially the people rolling up in caddies. If you're in the Philadelphia area and have nothing planned for Saturday, October 22nd, there's something going on you're probably not going to want to miss. Fred Durst, Yes, the frontman of Limp Bizkit and lover of big old armchairs is going to be hosting a special one-night immersive Halloween party experience on board the Mashulu, excuse me. So this event is dubbed Freddie D's House Party of Horrors.
Wow.
It's directed and hosted by Fred Durst and produced by Sad and Bougie. I don't know who that is. They typically host emo rock-filled parties around the country, other than those details. So who knows? Anyway, I don't know what this is, but there's actually some bad news later on in the article. Says right here that Fred Durst was forced to cancel a string of European tour dates due to some ongoing health issues. So that's no good. But it sounds like he is going to still host this immersive Halloween party on a boat.
Yeah. I was looking at another article.
What's your take on that, Eric?
I looked at another article about it. I think you were looking at Metal Sucks. I looked at Metal Injection. What they say for their little blurb is a one-time only Halloween party featuring your host with the most, Fred Durst of Limp Bizkit. Enjoy haunts and hot dog flavored water aboard the Mashulu in Philadelphia. Yeah, I don't know what to think of all that.
That was the name of wasn't that like the name of one of their albums, Chocolate Starfish and the hot dog flavored water?
Oh, I guess. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's the name of
kind of nasty.
It is a nasty title, and when it came out, by the time that came out, I had kind of jumped off the Limp Bizkit train. Is
that like the gravy train?
Kind of checking out what.
Sorry.
The
Limp Bizkit and gravy train.
Yes. Oh my God. That was a good one. I cannot believe in my entire existence I've never come up with Limp Bizkits and gravy.
My brain is overclocked right now. Like I really am really flying right now. And I don't know what's going on, but I'm jazzed. And we left the rails a long time ago. And I just think this show is going to be nuts. And that's the way it is. Wow.
Yeah. Limp Bizkits and gravy. Wow. I don't know if we need to do anything else on this episode.
Nope.
But we're going
folks.
to because thank you, folks. Thanks for listening. It was a great episode.
Yeah.
What did we learn today, Eric?
We learned that 2 weeks gives us a lot of pent-up energy. I am looking at the poster or flyer for it, and he is dressed as Freddy. It's pretty cool. That's cool. Pretty good
Freddy
poster.
Krueger?
Yeah, Freddy Krueger.
Cool.
Well, he's got his shades on and his dad hair and mustache, and Freddy's sweater and Freddy's glove. It's pretty cool. It's a really cool flyer, actually.
That would make 100% sense since it's going to be around Halloween time.
Freddy D. I get it.
It's a good thing he's not dressed as Freddy Savage. Remember him?
Yeah. Oh, like Little Monsters. Yeah, that would be a really good
Little Monster
theme cruise. I'd love to be on that.
Well, no, I was thinking more like Freddy from the Wonder Years. What was his name on the Wonder Years?
Yeah, that's him. Fred Savage. He was in Little Monsters.
Yeah, Fred's.
Right?
Yeah, no, I know, but what was the character's name on Wonder Years? I don't remember.
His name was Kevin Arnold.
That's it, Kevin Arnold, and then
and his friend Marilyn Manson.
Marilyn Manson. Brian Warner.
Yep.
I think it would have been funny if they would have referred to Paul as the Antichrist superstar sometimes.
Maybe they did. I haven't seen that in years.
What was her name? Winnie Cooper. She would have been like, pardon me, Antichrist superstar. Then we would have known for sure where Marilyn Manson got all of his inspiration from.
Man. Yeah. Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, they were kind of spooky kids, weren't they? Oh, God damn it.
They were kind of spooky kids. Well, shall we move on to the records, do you think, at this point? Or do you have anything else?
Most definitely.
Any other
No.
Most definitely any more nonsense. Man, I'll tell you what, Eric. We picked some really interesting music to listen to this time.
Yeah.
I mean, we always do.
No, but really, this episode. Now, I'm not talking about the part where we just lost our fucking minds.
Right.
The music we picked for this episode, really, really interesting stuff. High caliber stuff.
It is.
Yeah, and I don't say that
very,
lightly.
very good.
I actually hate most of the stuff we listen to. Today I'm pretty excited. So
this is like, for the first time ever, we're actually enjoying doing the podcast.
Yeah, sorry, all the other bands we've talked about, but you got nothing on today's choices.
All of you local bands and everything that we said we supported.
Yeah, sorry, dudes.
Now on to more insane things. The music.
Yeah, record time.
Come on, everybody, it's record time.
It's record time. The album that I picked this week is from a band called Oneida, and it's called Success. So this is the newest album from this band. I believe it's the first in like 5 years. I believe their last album came out in 2018. Oneida is from Brooklyn, New York. We actually reviewed a solo album from a member of Oneida way back in probably the 30s or 40s, I'm guessing. From Kid Millions, who is a member of Oneida. But anyway, Oneida is a band that's been on my radar for quite a while now. So my introduction to Oneida is a friend of mine who now lives in Albuquerque, but is from North Carolina, Winston-Salem. He used to live with Brian Barr, who was a friend of the show's. We interviewed him from the band Accelerativ. And then Erik, who is the drummer of Accelerativ, they used to live in a house in Lone Tree, Iowa, which is this small town outside of, kind of outside of Iowa City. So Chris and I, we've been friends ever since then. This was probably around 2001, 2002-ish. And he moved out of Iowa and haven't seen him since, but we keep in contact. We've kept in contact. We haven't seen each other talking about kind of strange relationships, about how we haven't actually seen each other in person since we did this podcast, Erik. I have not seen my friend Chris probably since 2003.
Wow.
But we talk on the phone all the time. And he is the one who introduced me to Oneida because he went and saw them when he lived in Winston-Salem. There was this club there that would host all these bands. And he called me up one night and he said, Dan, I saw the band of the century. He was really talking Oneida basically became his favorite band. Then it was because of that live show. And he told me about it. And he just said it was the most destructive music he had ever heard in his life. But also very controlled and very hypnotic and extremely moving, the live performance. I still haven't seen them live, but I bet they are great live. Anyway, that's exactly how I would describe the Oneida sound for the most part, is very rhythmic, sometimes punky, noisy, like kind of punky noise rock. Sometimes I don't know. It's hard for me. I'm kind of making up dumb terms here. Nuclear new wave.
Wow.
And it's crazy. There's a lot of repetition, which is makes it very similar to like krautrock at times. But then there's other times, like there's a couple of songs on this album, and this is kind of true with every Oneida record. There's a couple of songs on here that pretty much just sound like standard rock songs, like garage rock, psychedelic garage rock. And there's even one song that I wouldn't, maybe with some more polished up production, I could even hear it on the radio, like, or something like that. But that's not at all a dig, because I like the fact that, they kind of choose to sort of keep that crazy, dirty production, as with like most of the rock bands that I listen to. And, really probably most of the rock bands that Erik listens to as well. But I don't know, like, I think the best example of this record that is sort of a culmination of how I would describe Oneida in the first place is the song Paralyzed, which is this 10-minute song that pretty much repeats the same groove. Like, it's just a really incredibly groovy, hypnotic bass line. But then there's like soundscape buildups in the background. Mm-hmm. And the band does that a lot. It almost sounds like blues. If you were to strip away all of the craziness, like, you could actually imagine this being played at like a bar in some blue collar town or something. It's like they kind of have almost this, I don't want to say blue collar vibe to their sound sometimes. And sometimes, I don't know, maybe it's a little satirical. I think they're actually really serious about what they do. But I do think that I think there is a sense of humor involved in a lot of Oneida stuff, if that makes sense. And that, to me, it comes through with a lot of the older recordings, maybe more so than like this album. But that to me is kind of one thing that I find really refreshing about this band. If you are a fan of Oneida and are familiar with their music, I don't think there's really anything that you'll be surprised by with the sound of this record. It's kind of just a continuing evolution of the sound that they've built upon. But having said that, they've done a lot of weird stuff throughout their career. At this point, I'm going to say they put out at least 10 records, maybe more. Mm-hmm. And throughout there, they've done everything from almost like I said, like krautrock, psych rock, to almost like, I don't know, chamber pop, to just plain like rock and roll, to just straight up noise, dance rock. So they're a really interesting band, and this album to me is no different. Another thing that I think is really great about this band is that they sometimes, it's hard to tell exactly what instruments are being played. Like, there's one part, and I don't remember what song this is in, but I really could not genuinely tell if I was listening to a synthesizer or a saxophone or both. And it was great. I think if you like, it's really hard to, compare this to really anything for sure, like solidly. But I mean, I think if you're a fan of Devo, Can, Kraftwerk, maybe Sonic Youth, that the band Beak, and especially Trans Am, I think that you will find some comparisons here. But at the same time, Oneida's always been their own thing, 100%. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. Always have enjoyed Oneida records. And I don't know, with age, it just sort of seems like every time they come out with a new record, it's just kind of a nice treat from a band like Oneida. So what did you think, Erik?
Yeah, I liked it a lot. Oneida, I think our friend Jason probably showed them to me first. Mm-hmm. I think The Wedding was the first thing I heard, and I love that so much. But yeah, I mainly listened to him from maybe like 2001 to like 2005 or 6. And I loved all that stuff. I felt like it was somewhere between like Animal Collective and the Shins, like it was indie rock, but it was weird, but it was really pretty as well. And I liked Oneida a lot. Then they sort of seemed to get into like a more ambient noise. And so I kind of stopped listening to them. But I'm really glad you picked this, because this feels different. It feels different than both of those sort of eras that I had heard, because this is back to sort of like songwriting, but it is so noisy and rocking, like rock and roll. Like, I don't know how to describe it. Honestly, as soon as the guitar solo hits on the first track, like, it's on. I mean, it's like totally noise, not just noise rock, but like just fuzz. And I mean like fuzz to the point of like Jesus and Mary chain, like they have this broken shin eye fuzz from the 70s or whatever, and it sounds terrible. Like if you listen to Psycho Candy, that is the level of crazy ass fuzz that's on this record. Or like the Stooges or Blue Cheer or something, like that level of, it sounds like electronics literally failing. And that's just kind of like the guitars, you know, and so much feedback. But also there's a lot of electronics happening, and not really like always technically like a synthesizer, but really more like raw waves, like just oscillators, like tone generators, and then affected through just manipulation and effects and things like that, but not really being used in a musical way. That does happen as well, but there's a ton of just these almost broken oscillator sounds. The rhythms are, a lot of the stuff on here, it seems like they're based around arpeggiated electronics. So you have this sort of super rigid sound to the thing, because if it's just going through an arpeggio, you know, that's like really straight. And then because of that, the drums seem really straight, but they're really wild too. Like on top of that, they're playing within a very solid rhythm, but also just fills to the, I wouldn't say to the point of like Keith Moon or something, but that idea, you know? Yeah, there's lots of long noise sections or interludes in the middle of songs, very krautrockish, but also very kind of no wave, but really pop, like popish and upbeat. And in that way, it sort of reminded me of the earlier stuff that I really liked. But yeah, it's kind of really intense noise, but super fun and accessible. And I know that sounds like those two things couldn't coexist, but they really do. But yeah, I really liked it. Vocally, it seems a little different maybe than the stuff I used to listen to. It's no longer kind of stuck on this pretty sort of thing, but sort of more like restrained, but also sharp, like how, like Ian McKay's kind of delivery, if that makes any sense. Yeah, I really liked it. And I kind of feel like people who are listening to this podcast have probably heard Oneida, and they've probably already know what they sound like. So I'm not really going to compare it to other things, if that makes sense. But I do want to say that compared to the stuff I first listened to by Oneida, this is really different, but also some sort of weird return to form. So
Yeah.
if you like Oneida, definitely listen to it. And if you don't, and you want to hear what extremely noisy, accessible indie rock pop sounds like, then I think you would like it. So yeah,
Sure.
It's really cool. Yeah. I guess I'll get into it. So my choice this week is by a band called, I guess it has to be Re-Tros or Re-Tros or Re-Tros. It's RE-TROS. And I'm just going to call it Re-Tros, I guess. The album is called Before the Applause. Came out in 2017. What's interesting about this record? Well, there's a lot of interesting things, but this is a Chinese band. And for as amazing as this is, and for as big as they are in China, they only have like 10,000 monthly followers or whatever on Spotify. And I think that's because in China, they have like a separate internet essentially. So like Spotify is not the same, Instagram's not the same, stuff like that. So it's actually pretty hard for a Chinese band to really get a lot of attention outside of China. But yeah, this record is really cool. I'll just launch right into it. It's amazing, actually. Like, really, truly, I don't know, an album that really took me aback. It made me think, oh my God, I can't believe I didn't know about this. I can't believe this is 5 years old. It just, everything about it, I can't say enough about it. It checked every single box for me, for music that I like literally everything I could like about music. This does it. And even some boxes that I didn't even know about, so there's so many elements to it. I can barely describe it. It's motoric, like krautrock, it's driving, it's wild, it's simultaneously sparse and dense, which doesn't make any sense. Clear production. The production is amazing. I really don't know. I can't put a fine point on what this sounds like because it's just mind blowing. I guess I'll just name some stuff and some ideas. It very reminiscent of krautrock to me. Not only but I mean every element of it, even Hawkwind, stuff like that, Kraftwerk. But yeah, krautrock, noise rock, synthwave, experimental, minimalism, pop, post-punk, new wave, dance music, all of it. And it never really slows down or stops in the sense of how really dangerously interesting the whole time. Every sound and every note and every beat, you're like, wow, that was cool. That was a smart and cool way to do that. Everything that happens. Yeah, as far as the music itself, I would compare it to Trans Am. I would compare it to Kraftwerk, Ogre / Skinny Puppy, Einstürzende Neubauten, Black Moth Super Rainbow, The Liars, Prick, Devo, Public Image Limited, New Order, ESG, Liquid, Talking Heads. I mean, it's crazy how much stuff they fit into this. Vocally, the singer, I think, sounds almost just like Blixa Bargeld from Einstürzende Neubauten. And a lot like Ogre. At times, a lot like John Lydon. And I think sometimes like Kevin McMahon, otherwise known as Prick. I can't say enough about it. I honestly just hope that everyone who listens to this podcast listens to this record, because if you're listening to this podcast, this should be something that you'll really enjoy. Here's the second part of my review. There's a song on here called Pigs in the River that might be one of the most blatant rip-offs of another song that I've ever heard in my life. It sounds just like Red Right Hand. This same sounds, it's almost like a Weird Owl version of a song where they tried to replicate every sound. The melody's really similar, the vocal delivery is really similar. And it bothers me when that happens, because I think you can pay an homage to things without actually being derivative. And for that song in particular, Red Right Hand, it's a song that I have gone back to that well of inspiration for almost probably every song I've ever written. Like, I am so inspired by that song and I take from it all the time. And so when somebody just straight out steals it, I'm like kind of bugged by it. And then that sort of cast doubt on the whole record for me, because it was like, well, shit, is everything like this lifted or whatever? I did talk to my friend Brooks about it. I talked to my wife about it, and both of them kind of said, well, okay, if you were going to listen to Chinese music and you wanted to have that influence your music, wouldn't you take from those things. When you take the modes and the sounds and the moods and things like that. And that's a really good point, that this is sort of like someone in China sort of taking something they heard that's really cool and trying to present it back to the listeners who may not have access to that music. And so with that being said, I actually think that's a really good point. And now I'm back on board with loving this record through and through. But I will say, be prepared for Pigs in the River to make you go, oh my God, that's just Red Right Hand. And with that being said, I truly loved it, and I hope that everyone listens to it. What do you think, Dan?
Well, I'm going to start off with a question for you, Eric.
Okay.
And this is, I'm embarrassed. So the entire listening audience is going to hear my shame.
Okay.
Red Right Hand.
Yeah.
Who is that by?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, good point. Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, I first heard it on a CD called Sounds in the Key of X, and it was like an X-Files collection. And
Sure.
From that moment on, it blew my mind. I actually think it might be the theme song to Peaky Blinders, which I've never seen. So, but I think that's probably why it was popular enough to make it over there.
What's... Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, because this was recorded in Germany, and the main person in this group went to school in Germany and was part of like a krautrock band. So all those other influences sort of make sense. And and like Blixa, the sound of his voice sounding like Blixa makes sense, and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, I really feel bad for saying that it's just a really total ripoff, but I mean, it is. So
Sure. Songs in the Key of X. Boy, that was great. I'm actually embarrassed to not know that, because I've heard that song several times, and I just have not gotten on the Nick Cave. I have not gone down that rabbit hole enough to even know probably arguably his most popular song. But I knew it was on that. I just didn't want to say Nick Cave for sure. And the reason why I asked is because that's going to play into part of my review.
Okay, cool.
So, yes, Re-Tros, before the applause. Wow. I got to agree with you, Eric. This is amazing. This might actually be my favorite thing we've ever listened to.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm dead serious. This is unbelievable. I had to listen to it at least twice just to understand what was going on. And I still don't know what is going on with it. It is so I don't want to use the word insane, but it is. It's just about almost every style of music is represented for at least 5 seconds on this record, it seems to me. Like, and I'm not saying that as like some joke or, I'm dead serious. I believe, honestly, if you're a fan of any style of music, you can find something on here that you would like, even if it's just a 10-second section. I mean, seriously, it's unbelievable. I was a little intimidated by the length of the songs.
Right. Yeah.
But at the same time, I also, my pick was Oneida. So, and Oneida is known for doing that kind of stuff as well. In some ways, we almost kind of picked similar picks, I feel.
Yeah. Which happens sometimes, but this time they're really close. Really,
really similar. I think that, though, and I love Oneida, don't get me wrong, but I think this just, this is just like a whole other world, a whole other level.
Yeah.
The best way I can really describe this, and this is going to sound, this is going to be all over the place. This is going to be a word salad. Which is, it's kind of the audio equivalent of that, in the best way possible. But at times, and some of this is just going to sound like generic, sort of almost like I'm trying to be funny, but I'm really not. I'm at a loss for explanation. But like cybernetic, robotic, rhythmic, new wave weirdness sometimes, but then other times it's very almost like calming and very. There's some songs that and this is where the Nick Cave thing is going to come into play. Some songs, and I actually wrote this down, sound like something that you might hear from someone like Nick Cave. So it's interesting that you mentioned Red Right Hand. But I wanted to make sure that was done by Nick Cave before I, said, hey, I agree with you, Eric, and that song that you mentioned is it reminded me of something, and now I know exactly what it reminded me of. And I'm serious, you nailed it, Eric. But then there's other times where I heard a lot of Talking Heads. The singer's voice at times reminds me of David Byrne. The music reminds me of Talking Heads, the sort of rhythmic, almost like tribal nature of some of the percussion. And then there's just some crazy electronic stuff, which brings to mind of like Add Into X. Or something like that.
That's a great example.
Add Into X and Devo. A lot of Devo going on here. I also heard some like Minutemen and Gang of Four and dance punk type stuff. But also, there's a female vocal that sometimes kind of does like almost like a duet sort of on certain parts of this record. With the male singer. And that dynamic really reminds me of the B-52s.
Oh, yeah.
When they do it like that. I know that's kind of a weird comparison because they don't really sound like the B-52s, but her voice really reminds me of who's the redhead?
Kate Pearson.
That's it. Her voice really reminds me of Kate Pierce for some odd reason. So imagine if like David Byrne and Nick Cave and Lou Reed all together in one voice. This is on certain songs. There are other songs where he's doing like almost like a Steve Albini-ish scream or something. It's so hard to really nail down what this is. Basically, if you're into every kind of music, just listen to this. And if you trust our opinions about music, listen to this. Be prepared, though. It's not necessarily the easiest listen. It's really kind of a record that I think, and when I say that, I don't mean that it's super avant-garde or it's super, because it's not. There's a lot of things going on that are, you can tell that it's actually pretty musical for what it is. But what I mean by that is it's pretty lengthy. And like I said, I was kind of intimidated. But the thing is, though, I guess like it's so interesting that you forget about the length of if you let yourself get lost in the joy of listening to a record like this, then the lengths become completely irrelevant, if that makes any sense. So it is definitely like a record that I think I couldn't just put this on in the background or something. I really would, like it was a really rewarding experience for me to listen to this through headphones and just kind of sitting down and letting the world exist outside of me, just like listening to this album. And that's how I would recommend listening to this record personally. Maybe I'm completely off the mark. Maybe you don't agree with that. I'm not sure.
I listened to it driving in the car, and it was also an amazing experience.
Okay. So, now that I can also say that's when you're listening to it driving, that's kind of the same situation. I kind of put that with listening to it on headphones.
Mhm.
Basically, what I'm saying is this to me, you're not going to get the full effect of it and how amazing it actually is, in my opinion, and obviously Eric's opinion. You're not going to get the full scope of that if you're just going to put it on and in the background of a party or something. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
Right.
it's just that's kind of just what I'm saying. Like be prepared to actually like listen to it. I think you don't have to. I mean, don't. What do I know? But also, in addition to the Nick Cave stuff and whatnot, I also heard, particularly on the last track, reminded me a lot of Velvet Underground too.
Yeah.
A little bit. Oh, I was just gonna say too. Sometimes also Faith No More, Mr. Bungle, Mike Patton stuff kind of comes through as well.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
anyway, it's amazing. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for picking this, Eric.
Yeah,
I couldn't even imagine seeing this band live.
No, I think it would be amazing. And full transparency, this happened because I saw a YouTube video about the history of underground and punk in China, and this was one of the bands they talked about. And so,
oh shit!
That I mean, I don't. It's not like I combed the underbelly of music to find this. It was just I happened to watch a video. So yeah, just being real, but I'm so glad that they talked about it. It's a really cool record. So
just out of curiosity, was the documentary China Underground Music is weirder than you think?
Yeah.
Sorry that I got like unnecessarily excited when you said that, but I love watching music documentaries on YouTube,
and
too. That's something I'd never heard of. So
right.
I just saved it to my playlist.
Yeah. So then that's the reason I mentioned it is everyone should watch that little video because it's a really good video about a topic I've never even thought about. You ready for the local?
I'm ready for the local.
All right.
I'm ready for the local.
I'm gonna ask you just one more time, and it's local.
It is.
All the way from China to Iowa. Here we go.
Yeah.
And actually, I didn't do a ton of research on Druids. Where are they from? Do you know?
Yep, they're from Des Moines.
Okay, cool. So I know Luke Roush. He played in Land of Blood and Sunshine and Modern Life is War. And I mean, I've only hung out with him a couple times, but I like him. And it looks like Drew Roush is on bass and vocals. I assume they're probably related. Otherwise, that's a pretty amazing coincidence.
They are brothers.
Oh, okay. And then Keith Rich on the drums. So yeah, Druids have been around for quite a while, like a decade probably, and I haven't listened to them, and I feel bad. Not only because I should have, but I feel bad because I could have enjoyed them much sooner, and I kind of ripped myself off a little bit, cheated myself. Yeah, this record's called Shadow Work. I think it just came out pretty recently. It's really cool. It's heavy as hell and really different. I mean, I think yeah, I have not heard metal that's just like this by anyone at all. It's heavy on all kinds of different levels too. There's like stoner elements, prog elements, psych elements, drone, and then just straight heavy stuff. But really what set it apart for me is it overall is very ritualistic feeling, which plays into the name Druids really well. It's a nice package as far as that goes. Lots of like raga style Dorian scales on the guitars. Like almost every song has like a Middle Eastern kind of solo or melodic lead or something like that. And it really solidifies the sound a lot. And that's really cool. The bass is also very groovy, like really in the pocket, really doing a lot of interesting stuff, but never ever stopping, always moving. But also in that sort of Dorian mode where this isn't just minor keys, this isn't just minor scales like a lot of heavy metal is. They're really going into some strange territory, and it makes it interesting and enjoyable, but also adds this weight to it where it seems to have a little more meaning than just something that would be heavy stone or prog kind of stuff. The drumming is really solid, but also really free and open. It almost never stays locked into a groove completely, even though it's always there and solid. It's always able to swing it or move a little bit or just step outside of that rhythm a little and make it interesting and just sort of free flowing. The drums also include a lot of global music elements, not just the instruments themselves, but the rhythms. And that just adds to that sort of ritualistic feel to it. And I don't want to even say, from this region or this country or whatever. I think it just is sort of that, I don't know, outside the US kind of feel, and especially in the break in Dance of Skulls. I really love that break. It was really cool, and it reminded me of the break in 3 Days by Jane's Addiction, which is awesome because I love that break. It's one of my, as far as 90s music goes, 3 Days is like just a killer track. So anything that sort of has a feel like that, I'm way into. Vocally, I hear, and musically, actually, I'll say this. The only band I can really say that this made me think of was Big Business. And it had some elements of Big Business, especially the Here Come the Waterworks record. I think there's a lot of that breaks where there's just like really tom heavy sort of drone rhythms and things like that. Vocally, I think I hear a lot of Big Business as well, especially when he goes into this sort of like raspy yell. It's not quite a scream, I don't think, but it's a really cool. I also vocally hear a bit of Acid Bath when he's doing the more mellow vocal. And then when it gets to an extreme sort of almost hardcore thing, I hear more like Kanye, like that level. And actually just some sort of hardcore vocals too. But yeah, it's very squarely a heavy metal album, but with that major infusion of like ritualistic feeling. And I think it's really cool. It can take you places. I really enjoyed it. What do you think, Dan?
Yes, absolutely. This is a very interesting take on heavy music. And I think you're absolutely right, Eric, in saying that it's not exactly like anything else. There's definitely elements of metal and different like metal genres, but it definitely takes you to some other places. It almost has kind of, for me, a little bit of a medieval sort of sound to it at times. There also is, like you were saying, a very like mystical kind of hypnotic, almost psychedelic thing going on to it with it. Bass lines are definitely groovy, as you were saying. Excellent riffs. The drums just pound. And the thing that I really found interesting about the drums is the sort of changes that I heard. Like there's one song where it kind of switches from like a almost like a marching band-esque tribal sort of thing kind of going on, which I think that's sort of what you were talking about, Eric, with the sort of global percussion element that definitely is heavy in here. And then it switches over to kind of like a I don't know, almost like a faster tempo, but yet slowed down sort of drum beat. Like, I don't know, like it really reminded me of like Black Sabbath. And man, it was just so great. Yeah, and oftentimes there's changes within the songs. The guitar tones, fantastic. There's definitely some like I would almost say space rock elements kind of going on, some delays and reverbs in some of the leads, especially. Um, but yeah, overall, it just really is a great metal record with a lot of interesting things thrown in. To me, I heard a lot of pretty much anything Matt Pike has ever been a part of. So Sleep, High on Fire, heard a lot of that kind of stuff. I heard a lot of Mastodon, a lot of Cave In. And I would also say musically, some space and prog rock kind of stuff. Like I would say, like if you're a fan of like the music of like a band like Muse or even like Rush, there's some things in here that I could definitely hear musically could be comparable to that. But at the heart of it, it's definitely a heavy metal record. I don't think this is. I think it would be really unfair to just kind of call this like stoner or doom metal. I do think that there's definitely a huge element of that here, but there's just so much more going on. That's kind of why I think it reminds me a lot of High on Fire with maybe more of a mystical sort of element to it. Ritualistic, as you put it, Eric. Because I've always felt that way about High on Fire as well. And so, but overall, this is just a very original, interesting take on metal. And I think if you're a fan of any of this stuff, I see no reason why Druids wouldn't be your jam. Really good stuff.
Yes.
Okay, so what did we really learn today? I mean,
what did we learn? We learned that we are very excitable people. I don't even know if this is going to be a listenable episode, to be honest. I think that the beginning of this episode might be the wildest thing that I've ever recorded. No, that's not true, but it's definitely, I think we were a little wound up. I don't know what happened, but we calmed down and we got through our reviews and it was all fine.
It's like the free jazz or like the John Zorn Cobra of this podcast.
Yeah, this is a weird one.
Yeah.
We learned that Freddie D is having a boat ride.
And he's dressed like Freddie K.
Freddie K.
Yeah, he's dressed like Freddie K. And then Freddie S was Paul, or excuse me, Brian W.'s friend on the Wonder Years.
Right. Yep.
Or Marilyn M's.
Yeah.
Friend on the Wonder Years. Who was also Kevin A. Yeah. And then Winnie C. Was the girl of the dreams.
Yeah.
And then the girl of the dreams. And that's where we're at, ladies and gentlemen. That's where we're at in the universe.
Oh yeah, we figured out that you're not real, too.
Yeah,
that was kind of a big revelation. Right. That probably is a more important, really, than most of the other things.
I'm a different type of deep fake. They call me a Dan fake. It's like it's like the deep fake, but with guys named Dan. Dan fake.
Fakey Dan.
That's Fakey Dan. Yes, Fakey Dan. Oh my gosh. So if you want to contact us, we are on, well, one of us is on Facebook and both of us are on Instagram.
That's true.
Now we're on it now.
Wow.
We're on it now. At this moment, at this very moment,
we're checking our Instagrams right now.
Yes.
And none of you are commenting
about fairy rings.
Oh God damn. This was a wild ass episode.
It really was. And we were talking about Druids and you were talking about the mystical and the hypnotic, and what was the word you used?
Ritualistic. Yeah.
And I had fairy rings appear in my backyard under a rainbow.
Gosh.
My gosh, Eric, what a great episode. This
is the last episode.
Yeah. And, oh my gosh.
The jig is up.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. Well, until next time, ladies and gentlemen, have a good week. We'll talk to you then.
Bye.
Bye.
Jesus Christ.
Fairy rings are a real thing.
Really dangerously interesting.